So now we're going to have a look at our command, and we're going to use the example of a manager wanting to add an employee to their system. So we're going to have a few basic parameters such as the first name, last name, email, and we're also going to have a long, which is going to be the job title ID. So in our framework, the command works within 4 components, and these components work together within the system to kind of separate the concerns of reading the data, such as a query, with the modification of data, which is going to be our command. And this enhances the system's organization as well as simplifying maintenance and development. So what we're going to do here, we're going to start with the command itself. You can see I've got my folders ready. So in the commands folder, I'm going to add a class. And this class, I'm just going to call add employee command. It keeps it consistent, keeps it simple. You know what you're going to be doing with this command. And this command is going to inherit our base command. And the base command basically just contains the aggregate root ID. So we're going to be assigning the aggregate root ID for this employee, which will probably be a new GUID or a new ID every time when we create one. And this will be able to easily identify and retrieve this specific employee from the table when we need them to. And I'm also just going to paste in some basic parameters that we're going to need for this employee. So you can see it's got the require tag just because we're going to need some specific details from these employees, as well as the job title ID. We're also going to have a interface. Now, we're going to explain more this a little bit later. But here we're going to have the interface, and the interface is going to have the same parameters as the command. So we're going to have it like that. This is our command. And basically what the command is going to do is it's like an operation that changes the state of the system, but it doesn't actually return any data. So it kind of like represents an action to perform, such as creating or modifying data. So with this command, what we're going to do, we're going to move to our command handler. And now, like I said, keeping the same namespace, we're going to have command, and we're just going to add handler on the end. And this keeps it consistent so we know what we're looking for. Now this command handler is going to inherit our base command handler. Now we can choose whether we want it async or not. For the sake of this example, I'm going to have it not async. And then we're going to want our command inside. So I'm just going to paste this in and have the command. And we're going to implement these missing members. Now you'll see we're going to have 2 methods inside this command handler. The first one is the validation command. It's exactly how it sounds. And any validation that we need doing, we can do here. So for example, if you want for your job title ID, say HR for this example, we want 5 people maximum in HR, we can handle that validation here. So we don't add any extra people to HR because we want a maximum of 5 people. For this case, we're not going to have any validation, so we're just going to return an empty list of the validation result. And publish event is where we create our event. So we haven't actually created the event to be created yet, so we're going to get to do that now. But what our command handler does, it's kind of the component that executes the logic for the command. So we just created our command, and now we're going to execute the logic of that, and it will take this command that we just created as an input, it will process it, and it might trigger some events, and it won't return any data. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our event. I'm actually going to take the name of the command that we just created. So we have the add employee command, but because our event's always going to be past tense, I'm just going to change it to added event. So it's the added employee added event, excuse me. And this, we are going to just inherit the main event with the interface of our add employee command. So here we can see we've got the parameters, and this is the parameters. It's going to use the parameters of the interface. So let's quickly go back to our handler, and we're just going to return a new employee added event with the command inside. And what our event is, it's like a signal that something has happened in the system. So events are usually generated after a command is processed, or they can also be generated when another significant system change occurs as well. And this employee added event, this is going to lead to the event handler. So it's very consistent with the namespace. We have the event handler. We have the command handler. So we're going to copy this we're going to go down to our event handler and into our employees, and we're going to add from template, a new class again, paste the name of the event, and just add handler at the end. And like the command handler, this one is going to inherit a base event handler. You can have this async or not. Again, because we didn't have the command handler async, we're going to have this one non-async as well. And we're going to have the name of the event here. And we're going to implement the missing members. So you can see we've got everything we need here. We have the handler event as our method. And this is going to be basically the reaction to the event. So just for visibility, I'm just going to have the parameters, make a new parameter called parameters, and this is going to be the event parameters. You don't have to create this variable, but it's a bit easier to see if we do it this way. Now, what do I want this event handler to do? Well, I want it to insert the data that we just added as the parameters from the command into my table. So I'm going to do an insert operation. It's not async because the base event handler isn't async with my unit of work, and I'm going to want a new employee reporting, which is the table that I want to put this data into. So now I'm just going to paste some information in. So you can see the aggregate ID is going to be the aggregate ID of the event. So we can update this ourselves through the action form, which we're going to get to after this. The last update is, instead of doing that ourselves, we just take the last update and we put this as the timestamp the event is created. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the way that we prefer to do it. And in terms of the first name, email, last name, and job title, these are the parameters of the command that we initially created. So this will be bound in the action form when we create it. So this is usually for the user input. The first name, email, last name, job title, this is going to be the user input for this.